I now ask Mayor Bowser to begin the opening statement segment of this hearing. And Mayor Bowser, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Garcia, and members of the committee. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm Mayor of Washington, D.C., and I'm joined by the Chairman of the D.C. Council, Phil Mendelson, and the Attorney General for the district, Brian Schwalb. I'm pleased to be here today to report on the state of the district. First, a bit of a primer about my hometown. As you know, in 1973, Congress passed the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, creating a local government with an elected mayor and elected city council. We are represented in this body by a mighty warrior, Eleanor Holmes Norton, but she does not have a vote, and we have no representation in the Senate. D.C. residents are full-blooded, tax-paying Americans. We are a donor state. We give more to the federal government than we get back. We have all the responsibilities of citizenship, but not the most important benefits: representation and full autonomy. I'm proud to report that the state of the district is strong, and while we face macroeconomic headwinds, with our continued sound financial management and your help, our economic growth outlook can improve. I recently sent to the Council our 30th consecutive balanced budget with no new taxes or fees, a budget that reflects the sober reality of our time: declining revenues due to the unfortunate continuation of remote work, the reduction and relocation of D.C.-based federal workers, and other macroeconomic shifts. In 2024, we had the fastest growing population in the nations. Our schools grew in enrollment and achievement. Our parks system was rated #1. Over 27 million people visited our city, besting our previous record. Our metro system rebounded faster than other transit systems in the nation, and we drove down violent crime by 35%. Let me say something about our public safety ecosystem. It is unique. Like what happened in most jurisdictions across the country post-COVID, we experienced a violent crime spike in 2023. When I was last here, I explained how we would drive down those trends, and it is working. Today, compared to 2023, burglaries are down 34%, theft, motor vehicle theft, 37%, homicide down 44%, robberies down 60%, and carjackings are down 71%. Overall, violent crime is down 53% compared to 2023. And in the recent federal surge, we accelerated those gains, including a 1-month reduction in carjackings of 75%. In my last visit, I also explained the peculiarities of our system. We are very proud of the men and women of MPD who commit their lives to protecting the nation's capital, and they have my commitment to get back up to 4,000 officers with critical changes to our policy environment, a 13% raise, and enhanced recruitment efforts. MPD makes arrests. Most adult cases, however, are prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney for D.C., who is part of the United States Department of Justice. Our youth offenders are prosecuted locally by our Attorney General, and our Department of Youth and Rehabilitation Services, a local agency, is responsible for their commitment. But our youth and adult offenders are supervised by federal agencies. D.C. Jail is local, but most of our residents who are committed to detention are in federal facilities across the nation. Our judges are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. We currently have 13 vacancies. As I've told you, we are putting every resource necessary towards public safety. I've authorized the chief to use the overtime necessary to make sure we have adequate police on the streets. We spent 1.8 million hours of overtime last year at a cost to us of $75 million. I've also reported to you previously that we engage regularly with regional and federal partnerships, including the United States Attorney, the FBI, and the ATF. And that's why we will continue to use enhanced federal resources as outlined in my mayor's order, creating the DC Safe and Beautiful Emergency Task Force. In 2023 and in the years since, we pushed for legislation to rebalance our public safety ecosystem, including the Secure DC Omnibus. I'm out of time now, Mr. Chairman, but throughout the questions, I hope to also explain to you other ways that the Congress can be helpful, including helping us get back to 4,000 officers, fully funding the President's, when it comes, requests for beautification and safety efforts in D.C. to support America 250, helping with our homeless services, especially bridge housing that is working to get people off the streets. And finally, as we were able to do, Mr. Chairman, with the RFK legislation, their finance and economic resilience opportunities, like creating an opportunity zone, or D.C.'s Act 60, like Puerto Rico's, to ensure the economic resilience of the nation's capital.
Thank you. Very good. I now recognize Chairman Mendelson for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Garcia, Congresswoman Norton, members of the committee. I'm Chairman of the Council of the District of Columbia. Our form of government is nearly identical to yours. The Council's relationship to the mayor is the same as yours to the President. I'm pleased to testify and to finally present our views on matters that are clearly of concern to the committee. We are a beautiful city. Our public parks are well maintained. Our roads are in good condition. We have a world-class public transit system. Our public education system is a leader in the country in terms of choice and a leader among large city systems in terms of growth and academic achievement. Political rhetoric notwithstanding, criminal activity has been on the decline, with violent crime dipping to a 30-year low last year and even lower this year. The percentage of our citizens with health insurance is one of the highest in the country. Public lands, public transit, public education, public safety, public health, core functions of government, and we are doing well. And we are well managed. We adopt a balanced budget on time every year. We spend within our budget every year. We've had clean audits every year. We continue to maintain strong cash reserves. All of our pension programs are fully funded. And we continue to maintain AAA and AA plus financial ratings, despite Wall Street's expressed concern over the negative economic impact of federal actions. Despite these pluses, we are a city under siege. It is frustrating to watch this committee debate and vote on 14 bills regarding the district without a single public hearing, with no input from district officials or the public, without regard for community impact, nor a shred of analysis including legal sufficiency or fiscal impact. Bills like H.R. 5183, the District of Columbia Home Rule Improvement Act, make the district less efficient, less competitive, and less responsive to the needs of a highly complex, unique local government that serves local, county, and state functions. The SOAR Improvements Act would actually hurt 50,000 school kids in the district by defunding the D.C. public school system by approximately $17.5 million. It also would void a long-standing compromise agreed to by Congress with district officials. H.R. 5140, the Juvenile Sentencing Reform Act, is actually criminogenic. Data suggests that juveniles tried as adults are not scared straight, but rather are more likely to reoffend sooner and more often than those treated in the juvenile system. Moreover, you criticize the council for being soft on crime, but the current age thresholds this bill repudiates were enacted by Congress. Over the last several years, the council has taken steps to strengthen our criminal laws, and I will note that we have been able to pass these bills while Congress has not. For instance, we have strengthened the probability of pretrial detention. Even before we did that, the rearrest rate for individuals released pretrial was among the lowest in the country. We have strengthened, by clarifying and imposing new penalties, the criminal laws including shoplifting, carjacking, strangulation, and felony endangerment with a firearm. We have reinstated police resource officers in our schools, and we have taken a number of steps to support our police, including approving just yesterday a 13% pay raise for police officers and approving hiring incentives to increase the ranks of our police force. And we're about to adopt a deferred retirement option program to make service more attractive and to incentivize officers to stay longer. Instead of blaming the council, there are tangible actions we need from you because our public safety system is part federal. For instance, the greatest deterrents to crime are arrest and prosecute, but the U.S. Attorney prosecutes our criminals. And the best way to reduce recidivism is prison programming. But the U.S. Bureau of Prisons is responsible for this. And to further reduce rearrests for ex-offenders and pretrial suspects, we need two federal agencies, CSOSA and Pretrial Services, better resourced. If Congress really wants to further reduce crime in the District of Columbia, here's what you can do. Fill USAO vacancies. Double the funding we already provide for MPD hiring bonuses. Adequately fund CSOSA and the Pretrial Services Agency. Fully reimburse MPD for protecting the federal presence. The underfunding by Congress over the last 4 fiscal years totals $83 million. Submit and confirm our judicial nominees. Our courts have a 20% vacancy rate in judges, backlogging the criminal docket. Amend the Federal Privacy Act so that more data can be shared between federal and local law enforcement agencies. Allow our local attorney general to prosecute all misdemeanors because the United States attorney usually does not. And help us pay for a new jail, which houses federal prisoners, just as Congress helped pay for a new forensic lab 15 years ago. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I appreciate the committee's attention, and I also want to welcome Congressman Garcia as the new ranking member.
Thank you. Now recognize General Schwalb for his opening statement.
Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Garcia, Congresswoman Norton, members of the committee, I'm Brian Schwalb, D.C. Attorney General, and I'm pleased to testify about the work my office is doing to advance the district's interests and to make Washington, D.C. safer and more affordable for everyone. I'm a third-generation Washingtonian. My wife and I raised our 3 daughters here. I love this city. Just like your home districts, D.C. is made up of vibrant neighborhoods, hardworking, talented people who are the backbone of our culture and our economy. We are small business owners, veterans, teachers, nurses, and police officers, committed civil servants. We are Americans who deserve the same freedom to govern ourselves as your constituents enjoy. But unlike your constituents who benefit from having you here to advance their interests, the more than 700,000 residents who call D.C. home have no vote in Congress. We do, however, have elected local leaders, including an elected Attorney General. As Attorney General, I am committed to ensuring Washingtonians have a first-rate public law office, enforcing their laws, protecting their taxpayer dollars, and advancing the public interest. My office handles thousands of matters across an array of issues, from enforcing child support orders and protecting domestic violence victims to holding companies accountable for fueling the opioid crisis. We protect seniors and consumers from scams. We go after slumlords. We defend district agencies, including our police department, securing and saving hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Nothing is more important to the work we do than making the district safer for everyone who lives here, works here, and visits here. As you've heard, D.C.'s criminal justice system is unique, and its structure is often a source of confusion. Unlike anywhere else in the country, the responsibility for prosecuting local crime in the district is divided between the federal government, the United States Attorney's Office, which handles all adult felonies and most adult misdemeanors, and my office, which prosecutes juvenile delinquency cases and certain adult misdemeanors. Because the vast majority of crime in the District of Columbia is committed by adults, not juveniles, it is the U.S. Attorney's Office that handles the vast majority of prosecution. Despite our limited jurisdiction, we take our responsibility over juvenile prosecution seriously. Our attorneys aggressively prosecute violent juvenile offenses whenever there is sufficient evidence to meet the burden of proof. Kids must face consequences, swift and certain consequences when they break the law. And our prosecutors work every day to hold them accountable and ensure victims receive justice. Last year, we prosecuted 84% of all violent juvenile cases, including over 90% of homicides and attempted homicides, 87% of carjackings, and 86% of gun cases. Crime rates last year reached 30-year lows and have continued to decline this year. But there is more work to be done. We must continue to pursue a comprehensive public safety strategy. Effective policing and prosecution are critical, so too are preventive efforts designed to stop crime before it happens. Keeping people safe is not a choice between law enforcement or prevention. We must do both. As the nation's capital, public safety in the district has always required a strong working partnership with federal law enforcement, regardless of who is in the White House. We have worked and will continue to work closely with our federal law enforcement partners every day. But declarations of emergency and unilateral federal actions taken without coordination or advance warning do not promote long-term public safety. Sending masked agents in unmarked cars to pick people off the streets, flooding our neighborhoods with National Guardsmen who are untrained in local policing, attempting a federal takeover of our police force, none of these are durable, long-lasting solutions for driving crime down. In fact, they threaten to destroy critical trust between local communities and the police, trust which is essential to effective, efficient policing and prosecution. There are constructive ways the federal government can work with us to continue driving crime down. For example, Congress can help combat the flood of illegal guns pouring into our city. 95% of illegal guns that end up on our streets come from outside the district. We also need help filling longstanding judicial vacancies, confirming our highly qualified nominees. The vacancy crisis has led to severe case backlogs, with felony cases being scheduled into 2027, resulting in delayed justice for crime victims and the community. Finally, Congress could help by investing desperately needed services in facilities like a psychiatric residential treatment facility for youth with serious mental and behavioral health issues that often contribute to crime. All of us, DC's elected officials, members of Congress, we have a shared goal of continuing to make durable improvements to public safety in the District of Columbia. I and my office are ready to have serious discussions on how best to do that with anybody who is willing in good faith and in a spirit of partnership to have them with us. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, General. Now I'll recognize Mr. Jackson for his opening statement.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Garcia, Congresswoman Norton, and the committee for having me. I'm Greg Jackson, a D.C. resident, a survivor of gun violence, and the former Deputy Director for the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. This was an office that coordinated federal resources, implemented life-saving policies, and coordinated with local leaders to achieve a 13.2% reduction in violent crime and a 31% reduction in homicides nationwide in just 2 years. I spent the last decade of my life working to address this crisis, from consoling a mother who lost her 10-year-old who was buying ice cream in D.C. to walking the hallways in Parkland with families that lost their loved ones to school shootings. And we've seen firsthand how this is destroying too many families in our country. This is now the leading cause of death for youth in America, the leading cause of death for pregnant women in America, and now the leading cause of newly disabled Americans. With 1 in 5 Americans being impacted by this violence, this is also personal for me. I'm a survivor of gun violence. I was shot, the bullet hit 2 arteries. I've also lost my teenage mentee, DeMarcos, from a shooting. And I've also sat with families throughout this district. Despite this crisis we face, the last few years have shown us that we do have solutions that work. In the previous 2 years, D.C. and cities across the country have seen historic reductions in gun violence without the deployment of masked agents or the military. We did this by investing in prevention and intervention efforts to communities at risk and strategically investing in law enforcement to keep illegal guns off of our streets and to close homicides. Recently, even the current FBI director, Kash Patel, celebrated historic levels or historic reductions in violent crime. But we know that's not the product of a few months of troops or FBI actions. They are the result of billions in prevention resources, law enforcement, and community leaders risking their lives every day, as well as the transformative policies implemented over the last few years. Without masked agents and troop deployments, we've seen homicides drop 54% in Baltimore, 20% in Atlanta, 41% in Phoenix, 27% in Los Angeles, and as shared by district leadership, violent crime in D.C. is down by 53%. We got here in major part because Republicans and Democrats came together to enact a bipartisan law that provided historic resources for violence prevention, law enforcement strategies, as well as enhanced our background check system for those under 21, preventing domestic abusers from accessing guns, making the largest investment in youth mental health in history, as well as community violence intervention, and making gun trafficking a federal crime, prosecuting those who are flooding guns into our communities. These strategies, in partnership with local leaders, reduced homicides again by 31% and mass shootings by 20% in our country. As our communities have been fighting our way out of this crisis, we find ourselves at a dangerous crossroad. Instead of adding more federal resources to solutions that work, the Trump administration has dismantled and defunded bipartisan strategies passed into law to reduce violence. They shut down the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. They defunded law enforcement, including the ATF. They cut over $1 billion in mental health resources for our schools, terminated $812 million in funding for community violence intervention programs, defunded gun violence research, shut down the CDC Firearm Injury Center, dismantled important regulations like the zero-tolerance policy for gun dealers, and now plans to further defund critical resources to address the root causes of violence like housing, employment, and health care. And here in D.C., the administration and Congress's actions have been extremely harmful, withholding over $1 billion of D.C. local tax dollars, undermining our leadership, and flooding our neighborhoods with military to instill fear in everyday Americans. Look, I live in Ward 8, a community that the White House has called a slum. But for us, this is a neighborhood where we walk our dogs, we listen to jazz on Sundays, we grill out during the summers, and most importantly, like any neighborhood, we support each other. But since this D.C. Trump takeover, we hear sirens nightly. We've seen buildings raided daily, like the building of young Mackay, who's sitting behind me. We've seen elderly harassed on their porch, and now even traffic jams from the flood of police and military on our streets. This deployment of federal troops that's essentially making us feel hostage in our own homes is not the federal support we need. And most importantly, it's costly, costing our country an estimated $200 million for one city alone. To be tough on crime, we need a different approach. We need a federal law enforcement that focuses on keeping guns out of our communities in the first place. We need to be tough on crime by fully funding the ATF to catch gun traffickers, to shut down rogue gun dealers, to disrupt dangerous black markets of firearms. To be tough on crime, we need to protect and fund the bipartisan Safer Communities Act that was passed and is working. To be tough on crime, we must hold the billionaires accountable that have put weapons from the battlefield into our backyards. And to be tough on crime, we must fund resources for communities that are most at risk to prevent violence before it happens. We have real solutions to save lives from gun violence and reduce violent crime, and now is the time to protect that progress and continue to build on that momentum. Thank you. And Chairman, if you will, I do want to request, we had a really terrible tragedy last night where 5 officers were shot and 3 were lost, and I would kindly like to request we honor them with a moment of silence, if you will.
Absolutely. Join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.